I'm from Group 2, and my partner is Chen Chongman Mandy, but she's not here. And my name is Lin Ruoyu Ruby. And our topic is about if clause. To be more specific, our topic will be does if equal to 如果 all the time? Logical analysis of conditional clauses based on English-Chinese parallel corpus. And our target student will be senior secondary students. We hope our students are upper, intermediate, or advanced students because it's more about like logical thinking, a little bit challenging. And the length of lesson will be 60 minutes. And the previous knowledge, we hope students have relevant knowledge about the 4 types of conditional clauses, about their grammar rules and the corresponding context. And they should have knowledge about some connectives that can demonstrate the sentence relationship. And it is related to the later part about the synonyms. And they should have basic knowledge about how to operate the corpus. And the learning objectives, there are 3 points. Like first, after the lesson, they can identify a variety of mutual translation between English and Chinese of if. And they can use some synonyms to replace if in conditional clauses and create a new sentence to convey the same meaning. And the third one is they can use the 4 types of conditional clauses to make a daily conversation. That can include logical arguments. And our teaching aims is first is obvious, you use the corpus as a means for teaching. And the second one is we hope to cultivate students' logical thinking skills and their literature accomplishments through those translation practice and role play. The strategies I will explain more details in those procedures. First one is the introduction part. There are 2 activities. First is the story, and the second one I will show some video clip about the Zootopias. And the function of a story is because in this story the most important sentence is this: what would happen if your spear were to pierce your shirt? It elicits students' attention that if clause can used in people's daily arguments, and it is also a special type of conditional clauses. But if our teachers should to explain it more, it depends on your students' level. And for Zootopia, we help students to listen to the clips and try to translate the if clauses by themselves first. We will deliver some sheets with those pictures and the English subtitles, and they try to translate it into Chinese. And the answers we won't give them immediately. We will talk about it later, so we one student keep the answers for a while, because we will go deeper to explore how we can translate if clauses between Chinese and English. And so we go to the second part, activity 2. Firstly, we will give students a worksheet. It is a table with the names of 4 types. We can see here this kind of worksheet, and students will get an envelope that contains 8 examples of those data we that extracted from the corpus. We hope students to classify those examples into the 4 types of conditional clauses. It is a kind of review of the previous knowledge they have learned in lessons. And after they done the task, we will share the answers with students. And students can also see the Chinese translation during their task. And because the Chinese translation besides can help students to understand the meaning and maybe can help them to identify the types. And after they have a relatively clear picture of those 4 types of conditional clauses, we will go to the next task. We will ask students to use the corpus to search for multiple ways of translating if clauses into Chinese. It is an individual work. They just search it and make some summary by themselves. And because we have highlighted some words in the activity 2, so when they search for themselves, these highlighted words can give them hints, or they have a target word. It is a process of the scaffolding. And here, when they are doing the summary of those multiple translation, we will give a student a table with 2 columns, like meaning in Chinese and their synonyms. It is here, like meanings in Chinese and synonyms. And after they finish the task, teachers can talk with students about the answers. And this is some suggestions after our searching, because we find those sentences have translated into these versions like 只要 and 如果 一旦 请 请 we only found 1 example, so here, if you will excuse the liberty, sir, it is 请. And another type is they don't need any markers to demonstrate the translation. They just naturally developed without any marker word. And because student here have got a general idea about the mutual the translation, then we can go back to the first task they have done, like they have translated the movie lines by themselves, and now they can look at that. Can you revise your translation a little bit based on your findings and based on your new gain knowledge? And so here we will ask students to revise their translation. And down to the next part is in an inverse way, because we have to check if translated to Chinese. And right now we help students to see if you type 如果 how will the English speakers to express 如果 in English. So when students continue to explore, they may find some sentences, and we also conclude the findings, like in English sentences, the use of with, without, and while, like here, without, while, and with can express the meaning of 如果. And for the last part is about role play. We hope it is a group word of 2 to 3 persons, because we hope students can have more chances to practice their speaking skills and also writing skills. So we teachers will because in activity 1 we have given them a story, given them the movie or video clips. They have had a general idea that how if clauses implied in daily conversation. So here they try to create their own conversation using the conditional clauses. And we have the requirements, like they should use at least 2 types of conditional clauses and at least 1 sentence having the underlying meaning of 如果 without the use of if. It's a challenge, but we believe in students' creativity. Teacher will give them an example, like we make some sentences in the conversation. They can have reference, but they can choose the possible rules provided by us, like you can play in roles of teachers and students, parents and kids, and also you can create your own relationships. Yeah, and how to show these strategies because like first cooperative learning, students need to work in pairs or groups, and use of technology, students use the corpus, and critical thinking because in this lesson students all the time try to identify the logical relationships between the sentences. So it's about their critical thinking and self-regulated because after teachers modeling, they try to search for those information by themselves. And also we try to give students some homework, and homework is like first the student can try to use those synonyms they found to write or create the new sentences of those examples they have found. And also we hope students, because they have found some results that if can translate it into 只要一旦, then we hope students to use the corpus to type 只要一旦 into the Chinese English corpus to see if there is some more examples to prove their findings is correct or is a normal use. Yeah. The end.
Thank you. Any comments for the group 2 from the audience? Yes.
After 60 minutes here.
60 minutes. Yeah, it seems to be quite ambitious to cover.
It's a big difficulty.
It's a little bit challenge.
Yeah. I think the timing, I think you need to consider very carefully how much can be covered.
The students is about
Senior, secondary, right? Okay. Mature students?
a little bit, yeah.
Other comments?
I have a question, like whether I think if not every word can replace if, right? Because you have an objective like to let students replace the if by using the synonym.
Yeah, synonyms.
Yes, but I think because of some grammar issue, not all the words can, not all the conditional words can replace if. Right.
Here our focus is we hope students to identify the logical relationship between sentences. So because in based on those findings, these sentences can actually be changed into another way. Use those synonyms to express the same meaning. So we ask students to try if they can change into another way, but if it is impossible or doesn't make sense, then they don't have to change every sentences. It is just an attempt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
And also during our searching, we also find one problem, like because conditional clauses, they have very strict. Sometimes they have very strict grammar rules, but in daily use, the grammar rules is not always be followed because it's maybe more about the discourse grammar, not the traditional grammar. So we are afraid students will get confused after they're searching about those authentic English expression. Like, should we follow those grammar strictly, or their sentences are all correct?
I have a very serious question about conditionals. How do you decide what is first conditional, second conditional, third conditional? What is your criteria?
Because we base on the grammar rules.
Like what?
Like the type 0 is about the truth, like the result will definitely happen. And type 1 is like the result will. What's the type 1 is like will happen to a large extent, but it's not the truth of facts. And type 2 is about if you change, not like type 3, if you change the situation of the past. It's about like definition, and their grammar rules is like if clause you should use past perfect tense and use the like would and participants, something that's very strict grammar rules. Yeah.
I think we have to be very careful about this, because a lot of grammar books talk about conditionals. They have strict patterns, like 0 condition is simple present tense. Okay, if it rains, the floor gets wet, so both simple present. First conditional is if I have time, I will go to Japan. So simple present and future, simple future. And second condition is if I were you, I wouldn't eat that. Okay, it's like past tense and would follow that. And then there's the past perfect, right?
Yeah.
If I hadn't missed the bus, I wouldn't have been late for class, like past tense, past perfect. So, but when you teach students about all these tenses, they get very confused and they have no idea why do I use this tense at this time, that tense at that time. What's the logic of all these tense changes? How do you like connect this one condition with that tense, etc. So I think just now you already mentioned something about that. I think you need to teach this in a totally different manner. That is, the if conditionals has nothing to do with time. It's not about tense. Those tense doesn't mean it's present or past. It's about possibility. The whole thing is about possibility. Okay, the 0 conditional means 100% possibility. Yeah. If it rains, it gets wet. Okay, it's a fact. Okay, 100% of possibility. Then the first conditional, if I have time, I will go to Japan. We call it 50-50 possibility. Like it might happen, it might not happen, and it's not a fact, but it's a choice. Okay, I can do that. I may not do that. Okay, we don't know. Okay, so 50-50. And then there's the, if I won Mark 6, I would buy a house, okay? And you know, winning Mark 6, what's the possibility of that? You know Mark 6, right?
Yeah.
六合彩
Yeah.
High or low?
Low.
Low or very low?
30%.
Very, very low, right? Like almost impossible, but it's still possible.
Yeah.
One person would win, but 1 out of a million maybe. So we call it maybe 0.0001%. Okay, so very low possibility conditional, like if I want Mark 6. Or if I were you, I wouldn't do that. I can't be you, right? It's impossible. But actually, I guess in our mind, mentally, I can imagine to be you. Okay, that kind of. It's a very, very low possibility, but it's kind of imagined possibility. Okay, so that's like second conditional. And then the third conditional, if I hadn't missed the bus, I wouldn't have been late. So have you been late or not? Yeah, I have been late. Can you change that fact? You can't change. It's already happened. We call this 0% possibility. It's impossible for you not to be late. It's already it happened. So we call it too late conditional. Okay, it's too late. So perhaps you can think about that in your lesson design. So maybe tell students to think about possibility. Okay, I give you all these conditionals. Look at the possibility. How possible is this to happen? Is it 50-50 or very unlikely, but it's still possible, or totally impossible? Then if you ask them to categorize them into this, then they get a very clear understanding of what is the meaning of different conditionals. Okay, and so you don't blindly follow the grammar tenses to decide whether this is first or this second, because in some situations maybe it is a fact, but it's in a past tense situation, so they still use the past tense, but both are past tense, but it is stating a fact. Okay, so you have to look at that very carefully. And also, maybe it's not used as conditional at all. If doesn't have to be maybe used as conditional. I think you have some examples like if you will excuse me, okay. Actually, it's just
And if you will,
it's not really a conditional. It's just kind of expressing like sincere attitude, politeness. Okay? It's a kind of a politeness expression, okay, or something like as if, something as if. So look at those very carefully. So see whether, I don't know, you can explore whether everything is about conditionals or some are actually used in a different way. Okay, so as I suggest again, go through those data carefully by yourself, as many as you can, and try to explore all the possible usages, and then design your activity based on your own findings, on your own discoveries, and guide the students to find those patterns that you found, and then help them to learn about this. Okay, so that's a suggestion. I think some strengths of your design. I think the motivation part is very important. Okay, at the beginning, like 自相矛盾的故事 is very good. Okay, they learn a Chinese fable, and you can show a video clip maybe about the story. You can use multimedia to motivate them, because when we learn language is to express ideas, right? So you want them to enjoy something, okay, about some stories. I think this is very good idea, like using animation, etc. When the conditionals are used very effectively or interestingly, excitingly, to reach certain communicative goals. Okay, so that's very, very good. Okay, that's a strength. I think other groups can also make reference to that. You don't start the lesson just by saying, okay, today let's learn these words. Please look at these lines. It's not very exciting. You want to put them into a context, into a mind. Oh, this is interesting. Why is that? Let us think about it. Now let's explore. Okay. And then I think your learning objectives is good. Okay, yeah. Try to challenge them about critical thinking, and you even have some strategies, teaching philosophies behind. I think the other teams can also think about that. Okay, what are the pedagogy, okay, behind the whole approach? Okay, collaborative learning, etc., critical thinking. Yeah, good. And here, I think some of these examples, they don't look quite right. I think you use screen capture, right?
Yeah.
I think you better copy the text actually to make them into text, proper text, rather than images, because the images sometimes they are not very clear, or the size are different. You see it here, like they don't look very nice. Okay,
It is a draft.
yeah, it's a draft. So when you do the real thing, do it like in a proper way, you know, make it presented very tidily. Okay, and yeah, role play. That's an excellent idea. Like as lovers, okay, how do you argue with each other? Use if conditionals, come up with a dramatic play, a show. Okay. Okay, pretend you are lovers and you are debating about something. I don't think they should come up with individual sentences. That is a bit boring. But come up with a scenario, like they had an argument. Okay, they want to settle some issues. Then you should use conditionals to talk about it. Okay, or they want to plan for something, and they use conditionals something. So give them a real scenario. Okay, rather than just separate sentences. Okay, and all these good possible role play procedures. I think again, you may consider coming up with one example, like as like a possible scenario, like this would be how it looked like. I wish student could produce something like this, some kind of examples. Okay. Yeah, and the worksheets, yes. Yes, okay. I think good job. Okay, thank you very much, and try to improve.